most platforms are operating on a US token, and that's not great from sovereignty perspective, right? Which means every time you're buying USDC, you're essentially supporting US treasuries.
Hi everyone, Fraser Matthews here, the President and CEO of Netcoins, back with another interview as part of our BIGG CEO interview series in partnership with Blockchain North. Today I am joined by Didier Lavallee, the CEO of Tetra. Didier, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
We appreciate it. So Didier, tell us a bit more about the business. What problem is Tetra Trust solving for Canadian institutions and digital assets and payments today?
Tetra came together really after the QuadrigaCX failure. So for those familiar with the events, you essentially had a crypto trading platform, which in 2019, the founder left with the cryptographic keys and essentially the assets of many Canadians, upwards of 200 million or so. And out of that failure, essentially a group of companies and individuals got together and say, we need to create a framework for custody in Canada where digital assets can be properly safeguarded with a third party that's regulated. Canada at the time did not have a framework, so we went looking for a framework, essentially established a company in Alberta. Tetra is a fully licensed trust company out of Alberta. We provide infrastructure that is regulated for digital asset companies, whether it be crypto trading platform, ETF providers, etc. And since the launch of the company, we have added additional products, including a software company called Unity, and recently announced the launch of a Canadian stablecoin through an entity called CAD Digital.
Fantastic. And Didier, within the group, you've got a lot of exciting new initiatives, one of them being the Canadian dollar stablecoin initiative. What makes your approach different, and how will you build this out to be, a real scalable product in the Canadian market?
Yeah, no, great question. So there's obviously been a lot of various players in the Canadian market trying to address the stablecoin gap that we have here in the country. And with Tetra, including with some of our partners like Wealthsimple, National Bank, Shopify, ShakePay, we decided to essentially take a novel approach, which is use the license that we have at the trust company to become an issuer of a stablecoin. Now, the reason that's important is because that license grants us certain capabilities as a regulated financial institution. It also takes us on a different path than some of the other organizations that have really been going down the securities route to create a stablecoin. So it's a small regulatory different or approach, but it is a big difference in terms of the actual product you're bringing to market, because our product can essentially be utilized for payments, cross-border remittances, and other types of transfers, whereas securities-led stablecoins are restricted in many more ways. Tetra has three primary lines of business, all into a holding company. Our primary line of business is our trust company, so Tetra Trust, which offers the regulated custody services and adjacent services for our clients. So anything related to custody, staking, money movements related to custody, et cetera, comes out of our trust. It's a fully licensed entity out of Alberta. We have a software company called Tetra Unity, and essentially the Unity product is an orchestration layer in the digital asset space. It's really the culmination of 4 years of our own R&D and essentially taking our own platform into the market. And then lastly, we announced CAD Digital, or CADD, as a stablecoin offering that we'll be launching in Q1 of 2026. And our approach there is essentially to launch Canada's first fully regulated digital asset stablecoin that can essentially be used for payments and remittances across the world. I think Canada's lacked a lot of clarity when it comes to a proper regulatory framework. That federal clarity has been lacking, and therefore has been an issue for anybody that's looking to operate and essentially launch products in the space. More importantly, we've also had certain regulatory bodies in the country that have, taking their consumer protection mandate at heart and decided to regulate stable coins in a specific matter, more specifically from a securities perspective, which creates certain difficulties in terms of operating in the space, both for trading platforms, but also for payment platforms, for issuers, for anybody that would be willing to or trying to interact with the underlying product, whether it be locally or globally. Really, what makes stablecoins interesting is they're programmatic, which means that you can essentially automate all of your flow of capital, whether it be in your treasury function or as a business or, for various kind of use cases that are showing up. But I think one of the misconceptions is it's going to completely change, the need or replace the need for banks. And we see stablecoins more as adjacent to the banking system as opposed to fully replacing the banking system. And one of the great example here is real-time rails. I mean, Canada's been working really hard over the last few years to basically bring real-time rails to market. We think there's an amazing opportunity for stable coins to essentially supplement where real-time rails essentially stop. So, global transfers overnight, over weekend as two examples. So we really see it as an adjacent product as opposed to a one-for-one replacement. I would also say that stablecoins are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what this technology can do. I mean, we're seeing it in other jurisdictions. There's a lot of rapid progress on tokenization of various securities, money market funds, and different levels, including different assets, including real estate. So stable coins is almost like just the beginning of what we can see in terms of transformation for financial services.
And one of the things we've spoken a lot about is, greater opportunities for Canadian companies in our own backyard here, and staving off, threats from global institutions coming in here to Canada. What are some of the ways that we can help educate Canadians about, Tetra and Netcoins and companies that have been built here in Canada to really understand what the implications are for the end consumer?
Tetra has put a lot of collateral out into the public forum in terms of educating Canadians around specifically digital asset custody. I think that's just the beginning. I think there's a lot more education that's needed. Some of it starts with the client-facing platforms as well. Tetra is mostly an institutional player, so B2B player. But Canadians should think about a few things they should when they think about sovereignty in digital assets. So one is, if they're not holding their own keys for their crypto, then where is the asset stored? So if you're using a third-party platform, right? So who is that third-party platform working with in terms of custody? And then you can very quickly get to the underlying answer as to whether that counterparty is Canadian or operates in another jurisdiction, and then you'll have your answer as to where your assets are stored. I think from a stablecoin perspective, the same argument can be made in terms of sovereignty. I mean, you currently only have a US token that's approved to be transacted in the country, which means that most platforms are operating on a US token, and that's not great from sovereignty perspective, right? Which means every time you're buying USDC, you're essentially supporting US treasuries. So that Canadian tool coming to markets is incredibly important for Canadians.
Didier, we've had a lot of great opportunities working together over the last 18 months, which has been exciting, having Netcoins work closely with the Tetra team. Maybe tell the audience a bit more about how we collaborate, how we work together to build out some solutions, not only for your clients, but for ours over here at Netcoins as well.
Yeah, so we've really enjoyed working with the Netcoin teams. I think they're incredibly responsive, and some of the ways that we've been able to collaborate is to help some of our clients at Tetra that are custodied with a regulated Canadian custodian essentially transact their assets, right, through the various regulatory license that Netcoins have, both in Canada and in the US, and being able to offer those transactional services to our client base. I mean, I think that's been a very successful partnership. Netcoins also helped Tetra with its own treasury management and some of the activities that we're doing as an organization in terms of on and off ramping digital assets at various level. And again, the team's been very supportive, willing to work on kind of new models and new strategies with us, which has been very exciting. And we believe there's a lot more that the two organizations can do together, including supporting this new kind of stablecoin initiative and bringing proof of concepts into market for both Canadian users, but also to help demonstrate and educate various regulatory bodies around the use cases of Canadian stablecoins. So far it's been an incredible partnership, and we look forward to an expanded relationship.